Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, So Grow Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of So Grow Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Are you a nonprofit professional who's feeling overwhelmed and burnt out? Well, welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast. I am your host, Haley Cooper. On this podcast, we will share stories of leadership, courage, and empathy that'll help you learn to take care of yourself, your staff, organization, and community. You will hear from nonprofit leaders who have been in your shoes and have learned best practices to raise more revenue and make a greater impact. Let's thrive together. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Lead with Heart podcast. Today, I have Amy Paradise. And one of the things I love about LinkedIn and the virtual world is just being able to connect with people all over the country, all over the world. And that's how I connected with Amy. If you don't follow her, I'll link to her show notes at the end because she provides a wealth of good content on all things coaching, motherhood, and entrepreneurship. So welcome, Amy, to the Lead with Heart podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you, Haley.
So I know a little bit about your story, but can you start off by sharing your story, what you do, and how you became involved with your work?
Yeah, I'd love to. I support people to achieve balance between the many things they care about and their own well-being. And what this really means is, how do you take care of all the things you love, including yourself? I often work with parents and caregivers, and the way I came to this work was really that I was not paying any attention to what I needed as Amy, and did have these tendencies before parenthood to take care of everybody else. A long time ago, earlier in my working life, I worked for an organization and I ended up doing everything for everyone there. And I was very emotionally involved and physically involved. And a number of things happened and I got really burnt out and I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't feeling well. And I left New York. I live in New York. And I went to the desert. And it was a real luxury to be able to do that. And for me, the desert is calm and peace and spaciousness. And it wasn't anything that I'd had in my life. And so I felt good. And I came back to New York and I held on to a lot of that. And then I had kids. And I found that I was on the hamster wheel and there was no piece of it that was about what I wanted. I wanted a family, sure, but we don't always think about what that means in reality. So I was taking my son to daycare and then racing to the subway and then to work and then doing the work and then turning around and back to daycare and then dinner and bedtime. And it was just constant. And then there was another kid and I realized there used to be this light inside of me. I used to really shine and I wasn't feeling that. I wasn't experiencing it. And it was like this light had gone dim. And it was really because I wasn't paying attention to what it was that I needed outside of being a parent, outside of being a partner, outside of being an employee. And very fortunately, I was able to see a life coach and get in touch with the things that were important to me. And really before that, to even look at what was going on. So it was such a transformative experience and I loved everything about it. I came out of it thinking, I think I want to do this. And I discovered it's really the place where my skills and my values line up. And I'm so grateful that I get to be doing this work every day.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing your own experience. I have a lot of people on this podcast that share their experience of burnout. And I always say this is that when you feel like you're in the midst of burnout, you might not even know it. And it feels really lonely. So I'm just so grateful that you are sharing your story here today and that you took that brave step to make a change in your life. So that's the first tagline on my LinkedIn, and taking care of yourself first, filling yourself up. I work mostly in nonprofits. That's what I grew up in my career. And we are dedicated to service and serving others. And what I found is so many people don't take that time to fill themselves up, don't take that time to serve themselves first. And then they find themselves sick or having to take a break, being forced to take a break, a sabbatical, because they've been so dedicated to the work, because they're so scared that if they don't show up, something bad's going to happen. A lot of us serve, at least most of all, my experience has been human services. So that means a life is on the line if you don't show up 24/7, if you're not available 24/7. So why is it important that we take care of ourselves and fill up ourselves and our cup first?
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. I am not so well versed in the science of this, but I want to share something directly from Dr. Gabor Mate, who has done groundbreaking work on this topic. So, to begin, emotional stress is a major cause of physical illness, from cancer to autoimmune conditions and many other chronic diseases. And I'm reading here from his website and a piece about caregivers. Caregiver stress has long been recognized as a source of illness. The caregivers of people with Alzheimer's dementia, for example, have been shown to have reduced immune response to the flu vaccine and a greater risk of falling ill. They also have reduced wound healing. And in a study of mothers of chronically sick children, they found that the mothers had deterioration of their chromosomes of up to 10 years in advance of their chronological age. So when we're not taking care of ourselves, there's a clear toll on our well-being. And maybe this situation sounds extreme, and maybe for the listeners out there, it's not as extreme for them, but there's still an impact. When we don't take care of ourselves first, we end up short-tempered, for example, or making mistakes. I can see it in my life all the time when I have not made the space to rest, for example, that I start yelling at my kids when they're not doing the things that I'm expecting of them. But it's not their fault. And I don't want to be showing up that way. Maybe you've discovered, not you particularly, but one has discovered that it becomes harder to focus when you're not taking care of your own needs. And suddenly the spreadsheet in front of you is like a gobbledygook, or you're making mistakes. So those are other pieces of how this plays out. And then I would also ask, what example are you setting for those around you when you're saying, I'm not really important enough to make space for? My needs are superfluous. Is that what we want to be telling everybody? I don't.
Yeah, I've definitely heard the emotional stress can lead to cancer, can lead to other things. And I had someone recently in my life who is experiencing burnout. And they asked me, they said, what are you scared of if I leave my job? Or what are you like? And I was like, honestly, I'm scared if you don't. Because by the time you're showing physical symptoms, your emotional stress has been for a long time. It's become chronic. And so if you don't take care of this now, and obviously I've had other people on the podcast talk about this, and it's a privilege if you're able to take time off, if you're able to take time off to serve yourself. Not everyone has that privilege to do so or the space to be able to do so. But if you can, I feel like it's too much of a risk not to. I was like, we can figure out the financial situation. You can figure that out because you have the space to. But if you don't, I think something worse is going to happen to your health, because it is so mind, body, spirit is so connected, and your emotions come out in physical ailments and I've seen it with people my age, mid-30s, who have had emotional stress, chronic stress, emotional trauma, and they're having heart issues. And I'm 35. I shouldn't be having chronic heart issues or heart issues come up if I have my emotional stress taken care of. But I know that it's hard to because it's, and I would love you to talk about this because it's, I think, both something that we're conditioned to believe is to run ourselves rampant, just continue going, being on the hamster wheel, but it's also something that we can learn to deal with ourselves. So I feel like it's an internal thing that we've been conditioned to believe. It's also an institutional thing. So can you talk a little bit about that? What are some practical ways that we can take care of ourselves emotionally so that our physical health is all right as well? Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs, helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And I also, the part about when our emotional stress is there, it takes that much longer to show up physically. So it's been there a long time. It reminds me of something I heard someone say, rest before you need it. Because once you need it, again, it's almost too late. But as you said, that's a real privilege. So what are some practical ways that we can do this when we feel like, one, there's no space for it, perhaps, and two, we don't know how? There are two things that I think about a lot. One is, what do you need and what gives you meaning? So when we talk about our needs as to like systemic issues, and also for women, often we're not supposed to look at what we need, or we say, oh no, everything's fine. I can handle that. I should be able to handle everything, but it's not really the case. So one, like, what is true? Are you feeling guilty if you can't do it all? Are you feeling that it's an expectation of everybody else? And also, is it an expectation you have of yourself? And so then what's wrong with me if I can't? And what's wrong with me if it looks like everyone else is doing it all on their own without complaint, without asking for help? We're not meant to go it alone. As humans, we are interconnected. And so where can you find support? Like, what are the things that you really need, and where can you find support so that you can get it? And we might not know, or we might think, well, can't the people around me see that I'm flailing? Shouldn't they just jump in? But no, they don't know. And so once you can see what you need, whether it's, I need a half hour to sit by myself with my feet up, or to meet my friend and go for a walk, or I just need 5 minutes alone so I can go to the bathroom without somebody, in my case, like knocking on the door.
Yeah.
But if we're not saying it, we're not going to get it. Nobody's a mind reader. I had this experience in my own coaching years ago where I didn't want to take time for myself because I felt bad that my partner wasn't getting the same time. And my coach said to me, how do you know that he needs it the way that you do? Or how do you know what he needs? And the truth was that I didn't, because I hadn't said it, but I'd been assuming. And so I no longer assume that I know what he needs or that he knows what I need unless we're talking about it clearly. So that's about, what do you need? Let me acknowledge it, and then let me share it. And then what gives you meaning? So the way that we actually experience satisfaction in our lives is by doing things that give us meaning. We have these, I call them life's intentions in my work. And if anybody wants to access this tool, please feel free to get in touch. I will share this. But so a life's intention is the underlying direction or aim or purpose in your life. You could think of it as the thing that you want to be known for. And for example, it could be to be an adventurer or a loving family member or a contributor to my community. And when we can see it, when we can call it out, we can activate it and find more ways to demonstrate it. And the demonstration of the things that are important to us is how we experience satisfaction. So you can ask yourself, what are some things in my life that I want to be more in touch with that gives me meaning? And it could be that you're already doing these things, but you just don't see it in that way. And so I would offer this shift. If we look, for example, at having to make doctor's appointments, right? I was doing this yesterday, and either you're online and like you can't find the appointment, or then you have to call and you're put on hold, and then like they want to take your insurance information, and then they want to take your history. It's this whole, it takes time. And it was frustrating. But for me, it's really important to be physically fit and healthy. And so there's this small shift you can make. Instead of, oh, I have to do this, I have to make this appointment. What if we see it as, I get to make this appointment so that I can be physically fit and healthy? And it doesn't take more time, but it's just this slight shift that lets us access the thing that gives us meaning.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much. And this last year has really been a journey for me on discovering meaning, really tapping into my core values and developing a mission statement for both professional and personal. And I I found that I would be burnt out or stressed out when I was doing things. I'm also a generator from human design, which I have another episode on this if you're interested on human design and leadership, but I need to be doing things that fill me up and that are like a F yes, not an F no, and really trust my gut intuition. But I found when I was doing things that didn't align with my core values or that meaning that you were saying, like that's when I would get frustrated or like all of these like emotions would come up and I'm like, why do I feel this way? So this last year has really been this discovery of, okay, what is important to me? What do I want? And how do I show up for that? How do I live in alignment with that? And it's not always easy because I'm a people pleaser. So I don't like saying no to people, or I should say recovering people pleaser. But I've learned that if I say no now, it'll usually be better than down the road because I don't want to say something just to please someone and then later regret it or hold resentment or bitterness and not show up 100%. So I think it's a process. It's an ever evolving process. I still say yes to things. And then I'm like, why did I say yes to this? Or I just get frustrated, but it is an ever evolving process. So I would love your intake on like, we've said, asking for help, which is the most vulnerable thing you can do. I've also been conditioned to believe and been working on that asking for help is a weakness, that I need to figure out how to do it all. I need to be the one that knows how to do it all. But asking for help is the most courageous thing that you can do. And also, I think saying no is not selfish all the time. It's a hard thing to do. Can you talk a little bit about strategies on like how to take that first step of bringing that meaning and being able to live in alignment with that? And then saying yes and no to things that line up with that.
Yeah. Someone told me once that no is a complete sentence. So I like the idea of having buddies, accountability buddies, maybe. And I was thinking about this in terms of support, that if there's something that you need, but you're having trouble asking for it, who can you talk it out with? Why do I need this? What's important to me about it? And then once we stand on that, we're grounded in the truth of this. This is necessary to my well-being. That can help fuel us into having the conversation. And so maybe you have a friend or a family member that you can, or a colleague, and you can talk about this with. And then once you see it clearly, you say, hey, I'm going to ask for this thing that I need, and I'm going to check in with you and let you know that I did it. I think it makes us feel less alone. And also, hey, someone's got our back. Like maybe that if you haven't checked in, then your buddy is going to check in with you and say, how's that going? What do you need from me to help you to do that? When we talk about support, think about if somebody asks you for help. I I think it's in our nature, for the most part, to want to be able to give it. And it's like a gift. It's like, you gave me this opportunity to help you, to raise you up. And if you're hesitating to ask for support, perhaps you can see that side of it. Hey, I'm giving this person a chance. It's like a gift to be able to help me. There's also just this perspective of interconnectedness that I hold. Again, I said, as humans, we're not meant to go it alone. So if we're out here struggling, like, I like to step back. It's not always easy to do this. Let me first and foremost say, be gentle with yourself in all of these things. And remember that it's a practice. So if you don't get it right the first time, there's always more opportunity to practice and make these habits. But I think there's a grander picture about what the world would look like if we all reached out to each other rather than standing here in like a solitary space. And I think we all want that. And there are these small little ways that we can do it. Sorry, I think I'm getting off from your question. And in my mind, I'm seeing this like circle of hands, like Hands Across America. But I digress.
Yes, I love that. And I love the idea of us all being interconnected because, like I said before, when we're feeling this way, when we're feeling emotional stress, we're feeling burnout, we feel alone. We feel like we don't have the ability to ask for help. It's a scary place to be. I've been there myself. I've seen other people be there. And that first step of even reaching out to someone is so courageous. It is so brave. It is that first step that you are taking for yourself. So integrating these strategies, how does it change or improve our relationships with ourselves and our relationships with others, realizing that we don't need to do it alone?
Think that, again, there's a difference when you're living in isolation and everything does feel so scary. We have this negativity bias where we're looking for the things that aren't going well. And our brains are just like looking out for danger. That's what they've evolved to do. And it's just that they're just doing their jobs. It's like, oh, sweet brain, you're just worried. Thanks. But we don't need to live in that fear. And it's a tiny shift to say, what if I shift to the thing that's more important to me than being scared? And then again, it's like, what is that thing that's more important to you? And it's looking at your needs and looking at what gives you meaning. And that might require being quiet and sitting in the stillness and really seeing what's there so that you can see what you want to be moving towards, right? You don't want to be in the place that feels so scary. In one respect, it's okay to feel that, right? We want to acknowledge what we're experiencing. We want to acknowledge if we're feeling burnt out. We want to acknowledge if we're feeling angry, if we're feeling lonely. We don't want to suppress that, but we can be present with it. We can accept it, and then we can see the thing that's more important, right? And you can ask yourself, like, what's more interesting to me? Is it to stay here scared and overwhelmed? Or is it the possibility of finding a way up?
Yes, I love that. And I love the idea of acknowledgement. I was talking to the person I referenced earlier, and a lot of what my life coach says is, what resists persists. So if you are resisting those emotions, they're going to come up in different ways. So I love the idea of sitting and really acknowledging them and giving yourself some grace. I'm the last person to give myself self-love and compassion. And people are always like, talk to yourself the way that you would talk to a friend. And I'm like, it's so much different. But that's something I've been, again, working on this year, is really having that self-compassion and love for myself as I'm talking to a friend, or as I'm talking to my 3-year-old who's having a hard time. I'm not perfect at talking to my 3-year-old when he's having a hard time all the time. Sometimes I'm like, snap out of it. But most of the time I'm like, okay, I have to remind myself how I would talk to my toddler. And it's so important to have that self-love and self-compassion for ourselves so that we can be able to take that step and see that next step of there is a future possible that is different than this.
And I really appreciate what you're sharing because it's not easy and we're not having compassion for ourselves the way that we would with someone else.
Yeah. So I would love to ask, I asked this on my last podcast episode, and I would love to ask you, what is one thing that is bringing you happiness or joy right now?
We are really inundated with illness right now. Everybody's been hearing what's going on with kids and the trifecta. But at the same time, there is so much joy in being out with the holiday cheer. So we took my kids to a performance recently of a chorus that they'd never seen before. And they were so moved by this group of, I think, 250 men singing together. And my daughter said to me, why, look, they're all like moving as one. There was something, the whole is greater than, the sum of the whole is greater than the parts. Is that how it goes? And she was experiencing it for the first time. And it was delightful. So to be able to be healthy in the ways that we are and to be able to be joyous and spirited and delighting in people coming together to be more together than they are alone is something that I am really appreciating right now and excited about.
Yes, I love that. And I love your child's reflection of them all moving as one. It's so beautiful to see things through a child's eyes sometimes. And thank you so much for sharing that and the importance of being interconnected and together, especially during this time. So where can people find you? Where can people learn more about you? I said LinkedIn earlier. I always, and so get so much insight from your posts, but how can people find you?
Thank you. Or my website, my name is spelled with an I, so it's Amy, AMI, Paradise Coaching. And you can find me there or on LinkedIn. Or if you're in Brooklyn, just shout out and I'll hear you.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for being here. I can't wait to listen back to this episode because even just having this conversation, I've already learned so much from you. I'm just so grateful for the work that you're doing and just being here today.
Thank you so much. It's a real privilege to be with you.
If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.